lately I've been doing some shadow work. And if you don't know shadow work is, it's basically digging in within and uncovering some deep truths about yourself. And I was watching a church sermon from my local church, which I'll link down below. But the pastor was talking about judgment, and he was talking about how we shouldn't judge people. And I think he used the reference of Matthew 7, where it talked about how the measure you use on other people will be used back onto you. And so the way you judge other people, in that very way you will be judged. And judgment is something that I've dealt with for a long portion of my life, and I've always been kind of laid back and the observer. I always observe. I always watch my environment before I step into it. I always watch people before I decide to be friends with them. But that observation, which was initially used as a way to protect myself, turned into judgment, and it turned into deep judgment. I would like to call it even condemnation. Like, I felt like I was in charge of judging people. And there's a verse in the Bible that talks about how we judge people for the very things that we turn around and do. I think that's in James. And it talks about how we judge people and then we turn around and do the very things that we judge people for privately. And I find that as people, we always, because when things are plastered on social media, when things are blasted for everybody to see, it's much easier to sit there and be like, oh, how shameful for you to do this in front of everybody. But then we turn around in private, in the darkness of our rooms, and we do those exact same things. And so God was talking to me about judgment, and he was talking to me about how in the field of work that I'm going into, which, if you don't know, I'm studying to become a social worker, specifically clinical social work and educational social work. And for some background, clinical social work is diagnosing people with mental illnesses, figuring out what certain disturbances within people are, and educational social work is working in an educational field and dealing with teenagers, the transition from elementary to high school to university, and all of those things. And I remember working alongside with my high school social worker to promote mental health and wellness in our school. And she told me, and she made a speech, and something that she said in that speech stuck with me. She said, there's nothing that you could say to me, there's nothing that you could tell me, there's nothing that you can confess to that would ever make me judge you, shame you, or be disgusted by you. And it's when she said be disgusted by you, that's what stuck with me, because a lot of the times when I hear what other people have done, I get so disgusted that I'm like, oh, I would never do that. And that's why we always hear the saying, never say never, because the amount of people who I've seen say, I would never do this, I would never act this way, and they turned around and did it. A big one was a lot of the people that I grew up with used to always say, I will never smoke, I can never smoke. And then they got into high school and they all started smoking. And it was because we judged people and we looked at people with disgust that they fell into these habits. And now I'm very judgmental. And in that sense, because I'm so judgmental, I also judge myself a lot. So if I judge somebody, for example, and I say, I would never smoke, I'm not actually going to smoke at all, because I would judge myself so hard for doing that, to the point where like I will kick myself till I'm down. And it's very toxic and it's very horrible. But I think something that God has blessed me with is the ability to always be aware. Like, I am always aware of everything that I do. And I've been aware for a long time that I've been judgmental. But I was asking God to work on that with me and help me not be judgmental, because if I'm going into such a delicate field such as social work, and if I'm going to be working with people and hearing the craziest of craziest things, I can't sit there, because my face, like, it will tell you right away how I feel. So I can't sit there and hear something and turn my face at someone, right? Someone who's taken all the courage and strength that they possibly have to come and tell me, a total stranger, about themselves in order to seek help. And so yesterday I was like beating myself down so much, because I was like, God, like, I hate this about myself, you know? And judgment was always a mechanism for me to protect myself. I always judged because I wanted to protect myself. I wanted to help myself. And it ended up being weaponized against me to where I don't even allow people in because I'm judging them from afar. I don't even give people opportunity or space to be good people or to be good friends or to enter in my life because, oh, God forbid, their lives look so different than mine. And it's when you enter into that factor of judgment constantly, you're no longer allowing people to be human. And when you take the humanness out of people, you then display yourself as a godlike figure. And so that's what really the God complex is when you take humanity out of yourself and be like, I could never be at this level. God is the only one that can do that. We are all so flawed, and no matter how perfect we try to be, we will never be enough. And that's why Jesus came and died for our sins, because of our inability to be enough, because of our inability to be complete and to be whole. He had to finish that work that was once started. He had to bring it to completion with his life. And because of that life, we have grace. And because of that life, we have the ability to be like, I'm envious, I'm judgmental, I'm rude, I'm not kind, I'm not gentle, but there is a grace that is sufficient enough. And I'm going to take advantage of that grace, because every whip that Jesus got, it wasn't all for nothing. I'm going to take advantage of that grace and change. I am going to carry myself out in the likeness of Christ, knowing that I can never be as perfect as he was, but I can always strive for the perfection that God offers us. God is well aware that we are human, but we need to become aware that we are human too, and learn that everybody else around us is living life for the first time just as we are. So if you struggle with judgment, know that you can work on yourself without judging yourself. You can work on yourself. You can work on who you want to be in your environment without judging them. It's okay to correct people, but if you're having a hard time knowing the difference between condemnation and correction, then you need to work on that, not just for yourself, but for those around you.